Good morning. We are live on YouTube on the Falcons Podcast on our regularly scheduled Wednesday morning. We're going to bring in our Facebook groups as well. That's Scott Kennedy Sports, and that's All Falcons, Atlanta Falcons on All Falcons. And then we will get going. Good morning, everyone. It is Wednesday morning. A little soggy still here in the Southeast, here in Atlanta, but I think the sun might come out a little bit today. We are here for another Falcons Podcast as we take one more step towards the NFL draft. Nick, it's been a while since you and I have been on together. It's been almost 2 weeks. So how are you doing, my friend?
I am doing pretty well. The little guy rolled over on his own for the first time yesterday, so big landmark there. Unfortunately, that means he is out of the swaddles now, because as soon as they do that, they better have the ability to, use their arms. So last night was not the best night of sleep because it felt like we were doing like a rave or something in the bassinet next to us, or the wacky waving incredible tube man kind of thing going on. But no, doing pretty well and excited. We're about 2.5 weeks from the draft finally being here, and I go on leave actually in about a month now. I haven't even officially gone on leave yet. I took time PTO when the baby first came because C-section, in and out of the hospital, but no, that'll be fun, and I'm excited for that, lining up and eclipsing, if you will, with the better weather. So that'll be good.
Well, good. I'm glad things are well. Always exciting. You're like, okay, the kid's moving. Oh no, the kid's moving. Absolutely. So yeah, lots of stuff in there. Lots of stuff to talk about. We talk kids all the time. We're not gonna bore you with talking about our kids too much longer. But we do want to say hello to some folks. We go live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday because we like having the conversation with y'all. I had somebody came in yesterday, said I was talking about myself too much yesterday. One of the chat. I'm like, listen, I set a topic and then I answer questions. And there were some questions about, hey, how was your vacation? It was good. It was really good. So today we've caught up on all that. It's time to talk some Falcons football. Michael Ronquillo's here. He says, good morning, Scott and Nick on the Falcons podcast. Appreciate you, Michael. Glad you're here today. Silas Draven says, good morning, Scott and Nick and everyone. He's offering up the coffee emoji. I will drink to that. In the draft with the passions we have made in the offseason, who would be your top two picks? I'm a little off on additions. There we go. I'm like, I bet he corrected that one. With the additions we would made, who would be your top two picks? For me, Silas, and we'll get into it. We're going to do a mock draft by the end of the show. We're going to talk Chad Reuter's 5-round mock draft with a trade. So we'll get into all that stuff, what some other people are thinking, what we think. My first two picks, edge and corner. That's where I'd go. And I might trade up, might trade down in order to pull that off. Corner, edge, edge, corner. I think those are the two premium positions that you have good available players that should be there for you when you're picking, and they're a big need on this team, Nick. That's where I'm going.
I'm not against it by any means, as I spill coffee trying to pour it in my Lion coffee mug. He said I didn't have to do it. No, I wanted to do it, Scott. Now I want to be a part of the club. But God bless Lion Coffee. I'm with you that as far as needs go, edge and cornerback make a lot of sense lining up with the draft board as well. But I'm going to keep banging the drum that I am very much, you want to take advantage of the surplus value in any given draft. And this year, the surplus value, without a doubt, is wide receiver and offensive line. And those are two positions that they're depth positions as well. I mean, if you have one, you should be considering adding another one. I know that we always talk about in here, Scott, that like it feels like wide receivers are coming into the league every year, but they're still getting paid and everybody still wants them. I mean, even though they're coming in, teams feel like they don't have enough. It's crazy how much the demand is for wide receiver. I mean, Darnell Mooney getting paid what he did, Calvin Ridley getting paid what he did, and that's with this incredible draft class. Jerry Jeudy getting paid what he did. That
was the other one. Like, there's another one. Mooney was high, but it was still half of Jerry Jeudy. But Jerry Jeudy had twice the yards that he did.
Yeah. And not the injury, same levels of injury. But point is, you can't have enough of those guys, without a doubt. Difference makers at wide receiver. I think I saw a stat that explosive plays that were down, they've been the lowest they've been in 10, 15 years. So teams are looking for people who can go get that bucket, so to speak. You get the ball to this playmaker and let them go get those explosive plays. So I think wide receiver, offensive line still need to be in the conversation, even though you look at the roster short term. Okay, we should be okay there for a year. It's a surplus value this year. You have a lot of extra picks. If value lines up, you love a guy, go take him.
They're in the conversation for sure. I really feel like you need to match your board to your pick in this case. Like, let's say you've got, you're picking at 8, and let's say your first edge is at 12. Well, then trade down a little bit. There should be some guys that want to move back. I want edge, unless it's Marvin Harrison Jr. or something. But I want an edge rusher with the Atlanta Falcons first pick. If it's not at 8, that's okay. You can move down some and get something, but it's time. It is time to address the pass rush. I've given them some slack and some leeway on not picking one in the last 3 drafts because I just didn't think the right guys were there. It's really expensive in free agency. Josh Allen just got a $30 million a year contract out of Jacksonville. That just happened here recently. It's expensive. I get it. Now's the time. This is the one where you really don't have any excuse not to get, I'm not going to say a premier edge, but a premier prospect at edge. So we'll see. We'll see. There's going to be somebody else there at 8. There will be. And that's going to make it very, very interesting. Nando Barrington says, good day, Scott and Nick. Will the entire draft be blown if we take Cooper DeJean with our first pick? If we trade it back to 19 for more draft picks? If your first pick was at 8, I think Cooper DeJean's a little bit high. If your first pick's at 19 because you traded back and you took Cooper DeJean and ended up with 2 more seconds or somebody's first rounder next year out of it, then Cooper DeJean at 19 makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I really love Cooper DeJean. You mentioned it. We didn't get the agility drills with his private pro day 2 days ago. Now, I asked around. I still have some Iowa City connections there in the Hawkeye land, and I guess the agility stuff, it's what's coming out of Iowa City is it's because he was only medically cleared to train 2 weeks ago, so he could really only focus on some things. But like the agilities for me were some of the biggest questions, staying in phase down the field. Now, if you're playing more of that cover 4 off coverage zone stuff where you're keeping everything in front of you and you're not really having to mirror as much in coverage, then I think DeJean is definitely going to be up there. But if you're looking to play more man coverage, press man especially, he might be better as a big slot or a safety in the end. But one thing I do know is that he is not going to bust. You're going to find a pathway to the field for him. Now, you're going to get exceptionally more value if he can play boundary corner, just given what the market says. But I think worst case, you get a really, really good safety and somebody who can come down and play the nickel as well. Really good tackler. And Scott, I mean, with the new rules, the special teams stuff, he is one of the thick. He's really just a different gear.
He's strong.
When the ball's in his hand.
Strong. He's built like a running back.
Yeah. So, I mean, he came in 208, something like that. I think he actually slimmed down a little bit for the testing. I think he played closer to 215. A lot of his testing, honestly, was pretty similar to Jalen Ramsey, but we had the agilities with Ramsey and slightly better tape in my opinion. Obviously, not slightly better tape in my opinion. But yeah, Cooper DeJean makes sense in a trade down. And coming back to the draft, I still think your best move, Scott, is slight trade back and then slight trade up and just try to get one of those tier 1, tier 2 edge and corners and giddy up. And you are in a position where you probably can manipulate the board and do that.
Yeah, we'll see. There's good options. We talk about it all the time. There are good options. Some of the things we want to get into today. Also had Bleacher Report talk about the teams that should improve the most. They had 4 teams. The Atlanta Falcons were in there. And they had kind of an eye-popping evaluation on there. It was our friend Alex K again on the byline on this one, and had the Falcons with a okay, yeah, we think they should improve, but wow, that was a big improvement. So we'll get into that a little bit. Want to say hello to Mark Schrader coming in with a super chat, flashing yellow at us. That gets our attention for sure. Thank you, Mark. Mark's kind of our weatherman out in Texas. He says, good morning, Scott. We've had 6 inches of rain. Brother, I believe it. We had a good amount of rain here, but when I looked at the radar, that storm went horizontally all the way to New Mexico. There was a gap over Midland, Texas area, but it went all the way back to New Mexico, and it's going west to east. Lots of rain. It hadn't been too bad here in Metro Atlanta, but if you were in the belt line of that, just probably a little bit north of us, I would imagine Nashville got hit. I'm sure you did get a lot of rain. So I hope everybody's okay. That can wash out some stuff. Real quick, Nick, when I got back, I told these guys yesterday, one of the things I really missed while I was gone was my Lion coffee. It's nice having some of your own coffee. I've been on the the standard rich and zesty is mine. It's the standard one right here. This one's empty because I've ground this 2-pound bag down, but it's the medium dark. I know you've got some favorites because Lion Coffee has been keeping us caffeinated for over a year now. Thank you, Patrick, for keeping us going from lioncoffee.com.
Yeah, I really love the macadamia and vanilla. I mean, call me a millennial or whatever you want, Seattleite. I'm surprised I don't have a mustache with mustache wax or something like that. But locally sourced ingredients are a big deal for me. If I can know that it's something that can be like grown right there, that makes me feel better. And I know it's fresher. And macadamia nuts and vanilla bean are two of the best crops grown on the Big Island, along with, you guessed it, Kona and coffee beans. So the macadamia and vanilla coffee, one of my favorites. Also really love the gold roast with the 100% Kona. That is, that's a special occasion one without a doubt. So love them, and shout out to Lion Coffee. Seriously, Patrick, getting me through so many mornings.
We've had an informal relationship with Lion Coffee, just Patrick's taking care of us, but we formalized this a little bit. So now they are one of the sponsors of the show. So, I'll drop a link in the chat, check them out. Listen, we advocate. This isn't the Manscaped read where I'm rolling my eyes through the whole thing. We're also clients. We advocate. This is, you can't go wrong there. So,
and I know we don't have too long, but just tell you how much I love this coffee. I went on a 70-mile backpacking trip last year in the Sawtooths, and I could have gotten Folgers or Starbucks Insta Coffee, boil water and just add the coffee grounds to it and it dissolves. No, I took my French press attachment, added more weight, and then a legitimate huge bag of coffee beans that I carried for 70 miles over 6 days and 5 nights. So that way I could have my Lion Coffee with me in the morning.
You're trying to shave weight at that point. You're taking it with you. I'll take this. Anyway, so thank you. Check them out, y'all. I promise you will not be disappointed. There's lots to choose from. If you're a coffee drinker, there's something there for everybody. Want to say hello to some more folks. Red Swarm coming in. Floyd Donnelly's also in the house. Red Swarm. Scott, Nick, and all the friends in the chat. That's all y'all. Nate, good to see you. Good morning, Scott. Back at you. Brian Greenleaf. That feels like a newer name to me. So welcome in. Good to see you. Belo, Bird Gang, Belo's World. It is your world. Not good, but so good. Good morning from Ohio. I was born in Ohio. So a lot of family up there. Lots of folks coming in. I saw some California coming in as well. Jordan Brown is here. He says, holy smokes. Good morning, gents. A lot of pundits are feeling good about our offense. Couldn't say that a little while ago. Yeah, I know there was always going to be mixed reactions on the signing of Kirk Cousins, but he was the number 1 or 2 free agent, period. And he was playing out of his mind last year before he got hurt. Now, you look at the weapons that the Vikings have. You look at the weapons that the Atlanta Falcons have. They match up pretty well, I would think. You've got the one guy who's better than everybody.
Everybody.
Jefferson's better than everybody. That's okay. But as you go down, Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Bijan Robinson, you're matching up pretty well. So it's not like you're saying, okay, yeah, but he had all those weapons there. He had a good offensive coordinator. Well, you're hoping you've got a good offensive coordinator here in Atlanta, and you've got the weapons. And I wouldn't argue. I'll argue because I'm not going to state it as fact because it is an opinion, but the Atlanta Falcons offensive line is better than the Minnesota had last year. So overall, you are set up better to succeed in Atlanta, at least as well. And if you get the Kirk Cousins that you got last year, this team's going places.
Yeah, I would say the offensive tackles for the Vikings are better, without a doubt. I think Darisaw is probably the most underrated offensive tackle in football. There's some plays with him. It's like, oh my God, that guy is unbelievably powerful. But the interior, the 5 across, better for Atlanta. Vikings interior has been a big mess for a number of years now. But yeah, it's a really good offensive system. I still, have some questions about you have a lot of question marks at wide receiver still, in my opinion, with Mooney. I think London's amazing, but the other guys, we'll see if they can actually emerge as number 2, number 3 types. But Kirk Cousins is going to be good. I think it's a good system. A lot of the points of emphasis and the footwork and the reads are going to be similar, coming from the same Sean McVay system. Maybe the terminology will have evolved a little bit and changed, but He's got a full offseason to work on that. This isn't his first rodeo. So, I mean, the only question for me with Cousins is the recovery on health. And that's not been an issue in his career. I mean, we talked about it here ad nauseum leading up to the Cousins signing, that Fields has just way more injuries and higher injury risk than Cousins, because that's his first injury dating back to college that's caused him to miss time. So, yeah, definitely think that offense should be pretty good. And I don't think you're completely done adding to it either. I've had this stance from the beginning, Scott, ever since you added quarterback. But if one of those big wide receivers are there, I just think they're too good. I know you need edge, but they're just too good. Have you seen any of Tim Robinson's I Think You Should Leave podcast or live skits? Okay. There's a skit where he's like, the idea is just too good. I got to make money off of this. If you haven't seen it, it's hilarious. But that's how I feel about the top 3 wide receivers. They're just too good. You got to take one if they're there.
I think one of them's going to fall. I think one of them could be there. It's either that or Joe Alt. It's got to be. There's 8 players. There's the 4 quarterbacks. There's the 3 wide receivers, and then there's the big offensive tackle. Well, when you're picking 8, one of those guys is going to be there, so you're going to have a choice to make. So
that's when trade down.
Trade down.
Yeah. Yep.
That's why I like the trade down. Now, again,
good spot.
We've gone through mocks before where we've advocated for Neighbors, or I've had Harrison fall to me every so often.
Odunze.
Neighbors or Odunze, but I would still like to, and we'll get into Chad Reuter's mock here in a little bit and what he ended up doing, because he did trade down some. And Ryan Adonis, I saw your comment here. He says, sounds like Jared Verse is heating up. That said, the Falcons also brought in Terrion Arnold. We're bringing him in for one of their official visits, one of their 30 allocated official visits. Could he be an option at 8, or do you think he is more of a trade down candidate as well, Nick?
Can you say that one more time? I was reading the chat. What was the name?
It was Terrion Arnold. Do you think he would be a legitimate option at 8, or do you think he is more of a trade back, trade up? As far as I get, again, we've done this before, y'all. If this is your first time watching, we'll do it again. We might do it when we do this first round. We'll do a 7-round mock, so we'll do it fast. But if you trade back to 12 and pick up another day 2, you pair a couple day 2s together to move back up into the low 20s and get one of those corners. Cooper DeJean, Terrion Arnold, Chad Reuter had him like at 17 or 18, Nick. Had him later. That's one of the guys you're looking at where you could possibly get 2 of those players in the first round this year.
Yeah, I think that'd be, with how many picks you have, if you're going to get even more from trading back, I think you got the ability to do that. I really do. So I think Arnold, he didn't test phenomenally as a cornerback prospect, where I think he's an S tier kind of guy. I know that there's some who are talking about him, top 10, and there's a lot of good plays from him, but I feel like some of his ball production came like late in the game, Hail Marys, and God bless him, you still have to put yourself in position to take away the football in that scenario. But I didn't feel him. He's not like this Surtain level prospect, Derek Stingley, Sauce Gardner. I do think maybe he's a little bit closer to Devon Witherspoon, honestly, but last year's draft was much worse. And I think Witherspoon was much more explosive. He was more twitched up. But Arnold, great player. One thing that's really fun about Arnold is you could go in. It's the alien test, Scott. I think you and I have talked about this a bit, where like somebody who's, aliens descend from the sky, and they're like, okay, football, show me football. And you show them a game like, oh, that's the best player. You see, when you watch an Alabama game on defense, number 3 stands out. The impact, the tenacity he plays with, the ball skills, versatility too. He's another one where it's not the same as DeJean, where I think he's like more likely to be safety than corner, but like I think Arnold could be a really good safety and nickel as well, because of the tackling ability, because of the ball skills, because of the physicality. So love Arnold a lot, especially if he's going to be there in that 16 to 20 range. I think that makes a lot of sense for him. I don't think he has the same physical upside as a Kenyon Mitchell, who actually might pass him at the end of the day. But Arnold's a hell of a good player and has the pedigree to back up to, and a really good time at Alabama this last year.
Jason Heller says, hey, Scott, new father Nick, any truth to Dallas looking to trade Micah Parsons? If there was, I probably wouldn't want to be anywhere near it. It was the Cincinnati Bengals for a while. Basically, if there was a player with character concerns, he went to Cincinnati. Dallas is kind of the wayward home for boys as well. If you can't...
Kansas City.
Yeah, but they seem to get it together a little bit more there. It's like their structure is a little bit better. Now, it's like, oh, this guy has character concerns. Yes, Dallas drafted him. Big surprise. If he's not cutting it in Dallas, if Dallas doesn't want him for character, because it's not going to be on the field play, that's for dang sure. If Dallas doesn't want him, brother, I don't want him either. So I would say no on this, Jason. And if they are shopping him, I'd probably steer clear, just because, again, you're trying to build something new in Atlanta and culture, et cetera, et cetera. And if Dallas doesn't want him, it's not for on the field reasons. And Dallas is a lot more forgiving about off the field reasons than most teams. So I would say no on this one. John Harrell coming in orange. Appreciate you. Coming in with the super chat. Thank you, sir. He drag races, by the way, Nick. That was one of his cars. So this isn't just
That's
like
awesome.
a fan car. He actually races. Seen some of the vids. It's really cool. And he says, lots of smoke around Latu. Again, there's 3 guys that I think are tier 1 in the edge rusher. You've got Dallas Turner out of Alabama. You've got Latu out of UCLA, formerly Washington. And you got Jared Verse out of FSU. If I'm sitting there at 8 and all 3 of those guys are still available, and the Minnesota Vikings or the Denver Broncos call me up, the LV Raiders call me up to do 11, 12, or 13, I'm listening. I am. And that's one of the moves that Chad Reuter made, and we'll hit on that here shortly, where he did move down to 12. I don't like what he got in return, but he did move down to 12 and took Jared Verse. Absolutely an option on this. Latu is one of those guys as well, the edge from Big Edge. He's 265, if I'm not mistaken.
I think he measured in at the combine 259. But you have to check that.
Yeah, I'll check, but I think he's bigger. He's bigger than Dallas Turner, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, yes, he doesn't look as thick as Verse, but I think he weighed slightly more than Verse. My issues with Latu is I think he's much better. Worst case scenario, ends up a designated pass rusher because he's not great at setting the edge as a run defender, and he doesn't have long arms. I think he's sub 32 and a half, or right there around 32 and a half arm length, which again plays into some of the first and second down stuff more than the pass rusher. But man, he's got a bag. It's kind of like you'll like this one, Scott. It's kind of like Greg Maddux, right? Where nothing he has is like completely overwhelming, but he's got 6-7 pitches that he can pull out at any moment. And because of that and the mastery of those, he is just a really refined, skilled craftsman. I'm trying to think of a last edge rusher who was as skilled and crafty as Latu is as a pass rusher coming out. I mean, you could maybe make an argument for Aiden Hutchinson. He was really good with his hands. I know Nick Bosa coming out was really good with his hands, but he's really good in that way. And he tested much better athletically than I expected. I expected him to not test as well. Now, the explosives, which the explosives are the vertical and the broad, those are just fine. Those are in the 70th percentile compared to Verse, who is in the 90th, much more twitched explosive player, but really refined hand usage. And as a pass rusher, super, super high floor as a pass rusher. You're going to know he's going to get after the quarterback.
He weighed in 261 at the Senior Bowl and 259 at the Combine, and he's just instinctive. Again, there's you watch, where do you see instincts? A lot of times you see them the most with running backs. They say, oh, you just can't coach that. Where you can set a guy up where you, with little feints and shifts, you get a guy off balance, you spin, he never touches you. That's instincts. You don't teach that type of stuff. He's able to stack moves back to back and set guys up in the same way a running back would. And Latu is he's an instinctive pass rusher. I like him a lot. We would be very happy if Latu was an Atlanta Falcon. But we'll see. And then you hope. You never know how it goes, but that's as a prospect, I like him as a prospect. Chris Walker says, I'm still concerned about right tackle and center. I think we could use upgrades at both positions. This is a pretty good center draft, Nick. Yes. Going back to Chad Reuter's, and maybe the most eye-popping thing I saw was he had Jackson Powers Johnson. I don't know if you saw it. Do you know where he had him being drafted?
42.
50. 51 to Pittsburgh Steelers ended up getting him.
There is some concern about injury for him that is coming out more and more, and we'll see. He's not going to fit every single scheme, but Yeah, no, that makes some sense. Graham Barton has passed him for sure. And you might even see the center whose name's escaping, Zach Frazier, even go before him. So who knows? We'll see.
He was pretty. Oh God, he looked good at the Senior Bowl. He's one of the best offensive line guys I've seen at the Senior Bowl, honestly. So there's been some good ones down there. And center, it's funny. PFF loves Drew Dahlman. They just love him, but more along the lines of his run blocking helps elevate his numbers, which is good. And do I worry so much about pass blocking as opposed to being able to hold the point of attack at center? I mean, I should be able to get help on one side or the other, as long as I'm smart enough to be able to pick up stunts and combo block and stuff, which he is. That center doesn't worry me too much, but there's some centers at the back half of this draft, like Bortolini from Wisconsin, that I really like.
I think Bortolini will probably end up going round 4 in the end, somewhere like that. On the ground, a lot at Wisconsin, that kind of bothered me. Offensive linemen who end up on the ground a lot kind of just, give me the heebie-jeebies, because I've liked athletes before that just don't have balance. I can tell he looks like somebody who didn't wrestle. I can say that much. But yeah, there's a lot of good centers. His name's escaped me. It's like Nardizzi or something. The center from Penn State is getting a lot of hype here recently as well. He's somebody to keep an eye on. Van Pran from Georgia, also somebody very smart, a lot of starts under his belt. You talked about him a good bit coming out of the Senior Bowl, but Bo Limmer too. I mean, you're talking about guys probably going late round 3 to mid round 4. But that's where a lot of good centers honestly come out of the draft. So that's what there's a lot of names right there. The issue with that, Scott, is that a lot of those guys probably need a couple years, right? A year or two, because of how much academically is on the center, intelligently wise is on the center. So a lot of times it's hard to plug and play a rookie, but you're going to have options there without a doubt.
Brian Friedman over on Facebook says, we paid Caleb McGarry's starter money, going to have to live with it. It's a problem. You did, but you also have some flexibility there. You actually save. It wasn't a huge contract. You actually could save $3 million if you moved on from Caleb McGarry. Now he's making 12. He's got a 9 dead cap. You could actually save money. $3 million would pay a rookie. That would offset it. So Caleb McGarry, you don't have to. You have a little bit of flexibility there. And after this season, you can get out from that contract pretty easy. It goes to, after next year, it goes from 12.5 cap hit this year to 16.5 next year with a dead cap of 2. What does that tell me? That means Caleb McGarry will not be playing on that contract next year. Either he's gone or he's restructured / extended. He's not playing. He's not going to count $16.5 million against the Atlanta Falcons cap next year. That is a promise. Leon Mapstone, good to see you, my friend. So what's the latest? Are we still at 8 or are we going to trade down? The Falcons trade down, I would expect it to be basically when they're on the clock on April 25th. We will be here. I will be here. We're going to do for the draft. We'll do a live stream during the draft. And if they trade down, we'll be here a long time. So we'll keep that going. Otherwise, I plan on at least doing the top 10 till my voice gives out for the NFL draft night. But I still think trading down makes a lot of sense, but it's made a lot of sense for the last 3 years too. And they haven't traded down. They've stayed put and taken the best prospect that they thought was available to them.
I mean, if 4 quarterbacks go in the top 8, that means that one of the big 3 wide receivers or Joe Alt is going to be there. Somebody who's been a dark horse of late, Scott, I just cannot peg them by any means, is J.C. Latham. I'm not sure what's going to happen with him as well. I know some people have him in the tier 1 conversation as well, just because of the power profile that he brings. I guess I maybe am a little trigger shy with Evan Neal and his footwork, where it's like, okay, well, he really didn't have to guard the edge too much. And because of that, we didn't really see the true drop back pass sets, but he's another one in there as well. So again, I'm going to have personally, maybe I'm a little bit fantasy football sucker punched here, but I'm going to have a hard time trading off from one of the top 3 wide receivers if one is there, because of how talented they are and the impact of a true number 1 wide receiver. Not that Drake London can't be, but they're so valuable. But that said, with somebody like that falling, you're probably going to get a pretty damn good trade package as well. I mean, hell, the Bears sitting there at 9. They're like, okay, if you don't give us, this pick and a 9 and a 2 next year, we're just going to take the wide receiver. I don't want to sit there and miss out on one of those guys. So I'll do that for you. If I was the Bears, honestly, but it's going to be an interesting conversation. And a lot of people will definitely prickle at that. I already saw, not a wide receiver in the first, which I get. It's a deep class too, but those top 3 guys are pretty special. And I don't want to be, there's a certainty, there's a certain level of probability where you get with one of those top guys compared to the day 2 prospects. Even still, it's a good class. So those top 3 guys are different. I was listening to Dane Brugler talk about them the other day, and he said that these top 3 wide receivers would have been the number 1 wide receiver in any of the last 3 draft classes.
2 draft classes.
This one, yeah, so they're all tied. Well, Marvin Harrison's 1, but Neighbors / Odunze would have been number 1 last year. Neighbors or Odunze would have been number 1.
Including this one. Would Jamar Chase, would they be ahead of Jamar Chase? Because he was the number 1 wide receiver prospect in the last 3.
I think that they're right there with Jamar Chase.
Okay.
And Jalen Waddle.
Pretty good. He's pretty good. Yep. Edward Brown, we're going to roll this into the Chad Reuter discussion. With the super chat. Thank you, Edward. Appreciate the support you are showing the show. He says, I saw a couple of mock drafts that had Alabama cornerback Kool-Aid McKinstry fall to the Falcons in the 2nd round. Do you think he'll be there at 43? And if so, how does he fit what the Falcons want to do defensively? Now, including Chad Reuter on NFL.com, he's got a 5-round mock. He had the Atlanta Falcons trading back from 8 to 12 with the Arizona Cardinals because the Cardinals had traded out of 4 with the Denver Broncos. And the Denver Broncos got a steal in that trade too. It was like next year's 1st and a 5th, which isn't that much to move up from 12 to 4 for your quarterback. That's not a ton. May end up being the number 1 overall, but the Panthers paid twice that to move up for Bryce Young. So when they made this deal, the Falcons got a 3rd and a 5th, moved back from 8 to 12, and got Jared Verse, edge rusher at 12, and then he has them taking Kool-Aid McKinstry in the 2nd. Kool-Aid McKinstry was considered top 15 not too long ago. He's been sliding considerably. Scares me a little bit, Nick. Why shouldn't it, or why should it?
I think there's a good chance he falls down there. Probably still sticks out there, a pick like 25 to 40 range, in my opinion, but he is not the dynamic athlete in space. I know he's the number 1 cornerback prospect, but there's a little bit of stiffness to his game. He's not just an incredible athlete on the perimeter. I think if you're looking for a true number 1, no doubt shutdown cornerback, that's not going to be him, but he can be a good cornerback all the same out there. Arnold flashed a lot more this season, but teams weren't throwing that Kool-Aid as much. I think he's a little bit stiff at times and not the overwhelming player. So I wouldn't be shocked at all if he fell down to that range. He's not overly explosive or twitchy. So that's something that I think, maybe a little bit long-legged compared to some of the top cornerbacks.
If he reaches where you thought he was going to be, he's a steal in the 2nd. When they start sliding like that and they're still kind of living off their early draft hype, it scares me. It's like, okay, we'd slide him farther, but we had him, up. I mean, who is it? Kelvin King? It's Kelvin King, Penn State. He was considered top 25 and has just cratered. Mm-hmm. He's corner. I get him confused because the Falcons just signed Kevin King. I'm pretty sure it's Kelvin King. And he was considered top 25, and now he's cratered. Kalen King. Yeah. Now he's considered like a 5th round pick. Mm-hmm. Scares me a little bit, Edward. Appreciate the support. So I like the wide receiver if you're there in the 2nd to get your wide receiver too, because there's going to be some really good choices there. So we'll see. Roy said he's having his vanilla macadamia nut from Lion Coffee. Well, good on you. It's good stuff. GadX Boy says, what's going on, fellas? First live show today. Well, we're glad you're here. Appreciate you being here. Mark Turner has that question. He says, welcome back, Scott and Nick. Morning, guys. What would you do if Rome Odunze is there at 8?
I am seeing if anybody wants to come up and give me a future first or just an unbelievable amount of 2025 picks, maybe some day 2 2024 picks as well, because he is, there's a lot of good wide receivers in this class, but there's the big 3 and then there's the rest. So if somebody wants to come up and get him. Let me see who could make sense here. I mean, you don't even trade back that far. I think the Bears and the Jets, given where they're at right now, might want to move up for them, and you can get some picks for him. Maybe somebody like the Colts, Jacksonville would make some sense there. Could see maybe Miami wanting to come up, Dallas. I mean, there's just a number of teams there, but I think even, just like a tiny trade back, just to give yourself a little bit more ammo, to give yourself flexibility with the Bears and the Jets there, makes some sense.
One of the problems I've seen with this draft is it feels like the teams that are right there behind the Falcons don't have a second round pick. So the Bears don't. They go 1-9-75. The Jets, we know the Broncos don't. The Jets are at 10-72, so they don't have a second round pick either. Denver doesn't. So 9, 10, and 12, none of them have a second round pick. I want a second round pick.
2025.
If I'm going to move, then I want your first in 2025. I want your 2025 and a sweetener on that. I want this year's second round pick. I love this year's second round players. Michael Tran, good to see you, says, do you think the Falcons need another wide receiver in the draft? Yes, I do. Hopefully in round 2 or 3. There's a lot of guys in there. When we start doing these mocks, and we'll do in here shortly, I see wide receivers I like just about in every draft based on their rankings. Now, you can't count on that. I can't count on Luke McCaffrey being there in the 4th. I'd love to have Luke McCaffrey in the 4th round. I'd love to take Johnny Wilson out of Florida State in the 3rd. I don't know that I can count on that, but somebody should be there in that 40 to 60 range that the Falcons can get. And with two third-round picks, you can move back up into the 2nd, too, if you wanted to try and do something like that. So, Michael, yes, Falcons need another wide receiver. They've signed 2 guys. They've signed a couple more than that, but they've signed 2 guys that will compete for wide receiver 2. But historically, they haven't really been wide receiver 2. So, yes, I'm looking to go that direction as well, Nick.
Yeah, there's a lot of wide receivers in that round 2 to early round 4 range that can be difference makers at the NFL level with a bunch of different size profiles and whatnot. So, yeah, there'll be a lot of options. I'm curious to see how some of these guys come off the board. It almost feels like we've talked so much about the Rome Odunze of the world that like the other 2 Washington wide receivers get swept under the rug a little bit, but they're really good too. Jalen Polk and Jalen McMillan. I mean, really, really good players. I know that he had struggled with some drops, but the size and athleticism combination of Devontae Walker is interesting. Xavier Legette, huge player, almost 225 pounds, ran a 4.39, only 1 year of production, but I mean, just you're talking about like round 3. That's worth the risk down there. Malachi Corley, because of the injury, missed some time, but he plays like a running back. Javon Baker's got a lot of love. If you can get around the issues with Jermaine Burton off the field, then he's somebody to keep an eye on as well. Just wide receiver after wide receiver. It is a pretty phenomenal wide receiver class. I know that there's going to be wide receivers coming into the league every year, but this still feels like it's on the upper echelon of any class we've seen in the last decade in terms of the talent at the top as well as the depth. I mean, gosh, let me just pull up Dane Brugler. He has his top 100 here. And how many wide receivers do you think Dane Brugler has in his top 100, Scott?
15.
17 wide receivers in his top 100. Now, some of that's because the defensive
5 top 100 picks.
Yep.
Somewhere in there. You're sitting there picking at, come on, Tankathon, help me out here. You've got going to 109. You've got 5 picks through 109. You can get a wide receiver in here, y'all. Coach coming in says, "Good morning, studs." With the coffee, I've emptied mine. I've had enough. I'm well fueled for the day. Happy to have you back safe. Thank you, sir. Happy to have my kids safe too after taking a 12-year-old to 85 feet in depth. Not supposed to do that. That's okay. It's more like guidelines and hard and fast rules. Nick, hope you slept well. Yeah, get some rest, kid. Get some rest. Coach, thank you very much for the support for the show. We certainly appreciate it. Means a lot to us for sure. Want to talk about Chad Reuter again, because you mentioned the wide receivers and the Washington wide receivers. So Chad Reuter at 12 has Jared Verse. At 43, he takes Kool-Aid McKinstry. At 74, he took Chris Jenkins, defensive tackle out of Michigan.
Good player.
Could use some more size. I do like the signing. We talked about that yesterday. I do like the signing of James Williams Smith from Washington. I think that's a really good depth piece. 79, safety, Tyke Smith out of Georgia. We've done that one a few times ourselves. 90, linebacker Junior Colson out of Michigan at 90. What do you think about that? That one got your attention.
I just think he's my number one linebacker in the class.
Okay.
So I really like Junior. I think he's not a high ceiling guy, but just an incredible story. First off, he was in a boys' home in, I think it was Jamaica, then comes to the U.S. in middle school, and just been a consummate pro out there at Michigan for a number of years. I mean, you see him, the defense runs through him, so he's awesome. I'd be surprised if he falls to 90, given the teams looking for linebacker there. I think he'll probably end up going. Maybe. I don't know. It's not a great linebacker class, but I really like Junior Colson, so that would be a heck of a get.
And then 90 was one of the third round pick you got in the trade. So in the trade, you ended up getting Jordan Travis at 139 with your 5th round pick that you got, and Junior Colson. Am I willing to trade from 8 to 12 for Junior Colson and Jordan Travis? Maybe. It sounds good when you start putting the names instead of just the numbers. JB says, does Latu's competition scare you? This is a question I've had a long time, going back to my days scouting high school guys, because you'd get players from single A ball, and they're like, well, their level of competition. And the way I always tried to put it, JB, especially growing up here in Georgia, where the Hall of Fame players from Georgia all went to small schools. Herschel Walker, the Baileys, the Edwards. They all went to small schools. Charles Johnson, Eric Berry was a bigger school, but still not the top. I think he was 4 out of 6 at the time. Calvin Johnson was 4A out of 5A at the time. Those were bigger schools. But what I say is, as long as they are dominating their competition, that's all I can ask. But I want to see their testing numbers too, to see how it translates. The way I've tried to put it, and I used to use this with Herschel Walker, I'll say it with Adrian Peterson now. If I take Herschel Walker out of Callaway High School in single, I don't remember where he went, single A out of Hawkinsville, and I drop him at Parkview, he's still Herschel Walker. He's still Adrian Peterson. That doesn't change. What I want to see is the effort and make sure that they are dominating and not playing down to the level of their competition, because that's all you can ask for them. And they're not in control of their circumstances. But with football, I want to see the testing. Okay, well, no wonder he's dominating these guys. He's as big as the offensive linemen were in 1980, and he's running 4.3s in 1980. So that doesn't change. The competition, no, it doesn't scare me as long as he is dominating it, which Latu did, and his testing numbers match up to what I expect to see in the NFL.
Yeah, I don't think Latu is a top 12 prospect in this class because of some of the people he's gone against. I mean, really, looking over his schedule and the tape I've watched, the only for sure NFL guy that he went up against as far as an offensive tackle was Talise Fuaga out there at Oregon State, and that was his worst game of the season. Only one pressure in that game, where every single other one he had, 4. He had 11 against USC. I mean, if you want to be up on Latu, go watch him versus USC. That was pretty unbelievable. But Latu, I think, mid first round later, he tested better. The medicals are still the elephant in the room. Reports are that they came back positive, but that's going to vary team to team with how much risk they're willing to take there. And the other thing is, he was down there at the Senior Bowl, Scott, and he was very good, but he wasn't like, oh my God, dominant. Like, this is a star down here. Just, really, really good. So, I don't think he is a no doubt, slam dunk kind of pick there, where if you took him at 8, I'd be like, I probably would have liked other value there personally, but a good player all the same.
AAA Dr. Pepper says most of the top analysts like Blugler don't even have a defensive player in their top 10. I'm all for trading down if possible. Me too. Don't let need force you to make a mistake. That said, the need would be the defense drafting at 8 when there's not one in the top 10. The mistake in this case would be to not take one of those offensive players. I hope we don't do defensive end at 8. And that's what you're saying. So, I agree when I've got a multitude of guys I like and I can move down some. I would have loved to have seen the Falcons move down in the last 3 drafts, all 3 of them. And it hasn't happened yet. A little bit of a move down here would be very good. And, Tyler says, get off the receivers, guys. It's too deep to pick early. There's an argument there. I'll listen. I will absolutely listen to that argument. Doesn't mean we will agree, because right now, Nick and I kind of differ on this one too. You know, I don't necessarily want a receiver at 8 when I can go get some of these guys a little bit later. That's kind of where I'm leaning too. Doesn't mean I'm 100% that way. This isn't a binary conversation. No way we can't do this. No way we can't do that. I'll listen. I think there's an argument to be made there. Someone's going to have to make that decision, and they're not going to be 100% on that. Real quick, I want to talk about the head of the show. We talked about the Falcons moving up a lot. Bleacher Report, Alex K. Let me drop this article in the chat. I'm going to give them a little bit of love. It's a lot of writing, not just a quick puff piece in here. He's got the Falcons moving as one of the 4 big movers. The other ones are the Panthers, the Commanders, and the Houston Texans. And the projected record for this team is 12-5. 12-5. That's solid. I think 10.5 is the over-under right now on their wins and losses. So he's got them at 12-5 and talks about all of the good pieces that they've accumulated on offense, most of the pieces on defense that are back, like Jesse Bates, Onyemata, Ellis, Grady Jarrett comes back. You've got some holes to fill for sure. And going from 7-10 and 12-5, and he finishes off. I'm not going to read the whole thing. He did some good writing in here. He says, as long as as Terry Fontenot hits on a decent number of his 8 draft picks, and the coaching staff works out, they look like heavy favorites to win the NFC South and make some noise in the playoffs. I agree. I do. I agree. It's one of the reasons Arthur Smith was fired, is because of an underperforming team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it would be, oh my gosh, name's escaping me. The head coach now, Raheem Morris, would be the first to tell you the issue was that the issue was quarterback play. Right at the combine, he even said that if we had better quarterback play in Atlanta last year, I probably wouldn't be here. So that was, it was bottom 3 in the league, maybe even the worst in the league if you don't account for injuries as well. It's kind of hard to blame the Jets too much for Rodgers going down, first drive and then having to go with Zach Wilson and whatever the hell happened there. But a better quarterback play should raise the floor of this team tremendously, and the ceiling, of course, too. So yeah, this is a team. We talked about it on here, Scott. There's just not a lot of monsters that you have to go through in the NFC right now. The door is very much open for a number of teams that could be the one who gets to play, a monster eventually in the Super Bowl, whether it be Allen, Burrow, Jackson, of course, Mahomes as well. But yeah, the NFC is open, and the NFC South is very much open too. So I think, I don't know what the over-under is for Atlanta right now, but I'd probably would take the over.
It's 10.5 last we saw, and 11 should get you in the playoffs. 11 will get you in the playoffs and probably win you the South comfortably, I might add. Chris F says, Scott, what do you think about the signing of Charlie Warner? I really didn't. It's a low-cost depth type of move. Come in and do some blocking, do some of the dirty work, but he's not much of a pass catching threat. So I just think he's kind of just a guy. So I didn't give it too much thought on that one, Chris, to be honest with you. Not that I'm never not. Keith says, I'm for trading back and getting an extra second. Again, you heard me say it. When I'm going through the mock drafts and the trades, 9, 10, and 12, none of them have a second round pick this year. All right, well, you're going to have to come up with the equivalent of a second round if I'm going to move down. The thing is, if you can get a bidding war going between those teams, I might be able to squeeze a first out of somebody, a 2025 first out of somebody, especially somebody that thinks that their 2025 first could be in the late 20s, Nick. Who's a team like that? The Jets, they think we get Aaron Rodgers back. We add a Roma Dunze at 8, and we should be drafted in the 20s. All right, send us your 2025 first rounder then and see how that goes, because it's going to be 29 or 30 anyway, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm with that, Keith. Appreciate the stars. I want a second rounder out of that at least to move down out of that 8 at all. What do you think, y'all? You want to do a quick mock draft? I've got it on speed again because I want to do 7 rounds, or would you rather do a slower first round only, or first 2 rounds only?
Let's do the full thing fast.
Okay. Let's
That's what she said also.
Yeah, that's what I tried to say. That was the right way to go anyway. Let me see. I'm gonna hit present on this. I'm gonna hit share screen, entire screen, and share. And we are at 7 rounds. Can't quite see that, so let me zoom in just a little bit. Usually 150 works pretty good. I've got Falcons clicked. I've got needs. I'm going to knock that down just a little bit. I'm going to move positional value up a little bit. I'm going to leave the public board on. And randomness, I'm going to give that up a tick. So we're ready to go. Jim says full draft for sure. B-side Rap Review says, I think the Falcons' best option left is to fix a pass rush outside of the draft is moving Caden Ellis to edge. That's a really good comment. He was a very good pass rusher in New Orleans. The injury to Troy Anderson took some of that out of his game. So Troy Anderson, now you've got Nate Landman playing really well, and Caden Ellis. All three guys are healthy. I think you should free up. It should free up Caden Ellis a little bit more. I think that's a great shout B-side. And one of the hidden detriments, hidden costs, I guess, to Troy Anderson's not being healthy was the loss of the pass rush for Caden Ellis, who did end up playing well for the Atlanta Falcons. So, Nick, I'm ready to go, and we'll hit start draft here. And there's Malik Neighbors right there at the top. So when you click on this, as we've said, if all these guys are going to go up, someone's got to go down. I think this is realistic. Top 4, Caleb Williams, Drake May, J.J. McCarthy, Marvin Harrison Jr., 1, 2, 3, 4. I think that's realistic. Rome Adunze at 5. Jaden Daniels at 6. Quinyon Mitchell at 7. That leaves Malik Neighbors and Joe Alt on the board at 8. Roderick Cook says, keep Nick off the controls because he bounces up and down like a yo-yo and makes us all seasick.
I thought it was because I was going to sprint to the podium for Malik Neighbors here. I would take Neighbors here unless there's a really good trade offer. I don't know if you're interested in the trades, but those are, those are deep trade downs too.
Yeah, I'm not going to 26, 32, 47, or 54 in this draft. So trade down in this one is off the table.
I'm taking Neighbors.
And then I'm probably gonna have to come back end of the second round to get an edge.
Can you pause it like quickly after that?
I can let it run for just a moment and hit pause
and then see if we can trade
where
up
we're
again.
at. Like once it gets to around 15.
Yeah.
So listen, this is where I would have a hard time being a general manager, is because I want people to be happy. And I want to make sure the fans, you're my customers. I want to make sure my customers are happy, and I don't want them all to go crazy if you take another wide receiver here. I get it. I'm okay with taking a wide receiver here. Harry Marshall on Facebook says Neighbors. Ryan Adonis says Neighbors. There would be some backlash among fans if you took a wide receiver again, but I think you can abso-freaking-lutely do it. Let's hit draft. And then where's pause on this? Ooh, It went too fast, Nick. It was too fast. It was too fast. So. I couldn't do it. So I couldn't see who all was still there. So we're just going to have to do redraft. So I didn't get the chance with the speed of this draft. I didn't get the chance to do a pause. Someone had a question here not too long ago. Let me see here. Keith and Ellen Johnson. Do you think Ladd McConkey might be there in the second for the Falcons? Yes, I do. I think he's probably going to be in the 30 to 40 range, Nick. And that would make a chance. It would give you a chance for him to be there. And in this case, he is. Now, this goes to my discussion of why I don't necessarily want to take a wide receiver this high, is because I know for a fact there's going to be a wide receiver I like here at 43. Maybe not love, but like. Would I rather have Dallas versus Latu and Ladd McConkey, or would I rather have Malik Neighbors? That's where I start getting into that problem, Nick.
Yeah, we can always love these guys for what they are, but then you look back in hindsight, it's like, okay, these guys are just okay when I could have had the difference maker. But again, that's also, a little bit of overestimate in the analysis. So yeah, I understand both ways, but I really like those two guys. So now we're sitting here, 43. Scott, there are still edges I really like available. Adisa Isaac is really good. I think Braswell is still here as well.
I'm not a huge fan of Braswell. I like Isaac better than Braswell.
I also really, really, really like Marshawn Nealand if he's here. I don't know what the PFF big board has, but I know that a lot of other people.
Where's my ticker for
there it is.
Position? edge. I don't think Nealon's going that high. Yeah, I don't think he's going that high.
I think he will. I think he's got a chance to be the 5th edge rusher off the board in the end. So we'll see. I definitely like him over Jonah Ellis. But I think Nealon could go that high, Scott. Best run stopping edge in this draft class, in my opinion, and just rocked up, solid. So I think Nealon is going to have a chance to go in the top 50. He's real. Gosh, okay. Dane Brugler has him ranked as a second round pick.
Okay.
Second round grade. So I know that a lot of people really liked him. Where is he at overall on his board? He's ranked 32 on Brugler's big board.
Okay. That would make me feel better about this to get Marshawn Nealon. I've got some video of him on my YouTube page where he's solid, not spectacular, but I felt like he didn't take as many reps for one reason or another as well. I like Isaac, but I feel like Isaac's fairly similar to I don't know that the upside is there. I feel like he's very similar to Ebiketie already.
He's a little bit more powerful. I think Ebiketie's a little bit more twitched. I
also wouldn't mind, you get your starting safety here too. If you want Javon Bullard or, a corner here, TJ Tampa isn't a bad way to go. But Jim Shepard, he's on board with the wide receiver pick. He says, Neighbors at Dunze at 8, or we trade back. I just can't get excited about a pass rusher that most pundits have ranked 15 to 20 on their board, which screams trade down in that case, or trade back up. That's what we would have tried to do, is trade back up, but it just went too fast, and which is on the table. We can absolutely do that. I'll give you the Nealon pick on this one. He was 58. Got our edge, high upside edge.
Very high floor edge, also, in my opinion. I mean, the size profile, the smarts in the run defense on first and second down, he's going to bring you something to the table there. So I really like Nealon. I know that some folks I've spoken to, I was mocking him third round at Denver a lot, and people were like, he's not going to be there, Nick, round 3. So that's one that I think stands out a good bit. We're on the clock now with the Falcons again here at pick 74.
You get 2 picks, 74 and 79. There's wide receivers in here I really like. I love the upside of Johnny Wilson. You talk, Braylon Trice was getting some first round shouts at the beginning of the year.
But then his combine was one of the worst. He was one of the biggest combine losers. Came in small and did not test well. It's like, man, you if you thought you were going to lose all that weight to test better, then you better freaking test better.
Yeah, Gadak's voice says take Pearsall or Polk in the 3rd. I don't think you're going to get Pearsall in the 3rd. I actually just wrote up about him. I think he's a second round guy all the way.
Yeah, he's really good. I know some people have thrown out the Adam Thielen comparison for him, a little bit of inside outside on him as well.
42 inch vertical leap at 6 foot, 190 pounds. He's a hell of an athlete.
Yeah, he really is. Is our guy from Rutgers still available? Max Melton?
He will be. He's probably right in this neighborhood unless he moved. Did he move down? Let me scroll up real quick, y'all. Sorry.
Go to the corners.
Go to corners. See, I like Kyrie Jackson. Someone asked about Milton must have gone because I don't think he moved down this much. Yeah, he must have gone already.
Man, okay, they must have updated their board because he's one that I'm always looking for in this area.
I don't see him though. Oh, there he went 39. They absolutely updated their board because we used to take him in the 90s.
Yeah, woof. So, I mean, honestly, what I'm looking at here, Scott, is if you go back to the big board, Kyrie Jackson makes some sense. I think he's almost like a pure press man kind of guy. I don't know. He's pretty stiff to me. I like some other guys a little bit more, like DJ James from Auburn stands out to me. But the name who stands out here for me when I was looking at the board was Blake Fisher.
A tackle. There's your offensive tackle, y'all. Also, I don't mind the idea of Tavondre Sweat. Yeah, he got in a little bit of trouble on here, but third round. And I'm dropping him in. Calais Campbell could even be back too. I'm dropping him in with a couple of mentors and David on. It's the same discussion we had last year with not Jordan Davis, the Philadelphia Eagles, Georgia Bulldog.
Jordan Davis. 2 years ago.
Last year.
Oh, gosh.
Totally drawn a blank. Help us out here. You went
Carter. Jalen Carter.
Yes, thank you.
Going through the names in my head.
Conversation we had about him last year was, going here, getting getting in there in a good environment with some pros like this could be very good. So I would be okay with that. And you're going to bunk with Grady Jarrett on this. Thank you, guys. It's sometimes that happens. We get stuck on that. So appreciate it.
I would be very concerned about Sweat. He had a converse coming into this year. A lot of people were worried about him being a partier and not really carrying too much. And that's some of it is the body taking care of himself as well. But I mean, he had 2 weeks before the draft. So speaking of, risk assessment and just maturity there, he blew 25% over the legal limit. And I guess he didn't have his blood alcohol content taken until 3 hours after he was arrested. So it would have been significantly higher as well at the time. I don't know. There was some red flags about the maturity coming in, and then to have this happen, especially for somebody who not going to play, a lot of snaps. I don't know. You have a lot of picks. So I guess there's some, you get alleviation of the risk there, but I would be, I don't know, man. He scares me.
Blake Fisher, again, we've talked about offensive tackle being a sneaky need for this team. I'm okay going tackle in the third.
I also would not mind Edgerrin Cooper from the talk here from Smitty's Sports Machine. He went the next pick, of course. T'Vondre Sweat to Denver. Good luck with the high altitude there.
Yeah, really, he needs all the oxygen he can get.
Yeah. But I would be, I know Warren Sapp was a party or two. I wouldn't touch Warren Sapp, man. I can't believe Colorado brought him in. That's another conversation.
He got hired as a coach.
Yeah.
Not a Warren Sapp fan. I understand, Randy Moss had the same problem. He had a weed, it was like a weed problem before. So did Warren Sapp. I've been around Warren Sapp professionally. I don't want anything to do with Warren Sapp, around kids. I mean, around human beings, honestly.
Yeah, he is. He gives me the ick, for sure. So we're on the clock here now with the Falcons again. Looking at the board, I mean, here's your center. You got Cedric Van Pran down there. You could still get Bordellini later if you want. I think that's kind of a cheat code in this at this point.
I like Dominic Pooney, honestly, as one of my developmental tackles.
I think he's probably more likely to be a guard than a tackle in the league, but his short shuttle was incredible. Just keep scrolling down if you would. Not up and down, but I just kind of want to see some of the names here.
You need a safety still.
I think it's a little early. Oh, my God, Scott. That's the cheat value right there. It's Michael Hall. Yeah, he should be much higher than this, in my opinion.
Yep.
Yeah, he is.
Michael Hall.
Yeah. He's going to go. I think he'll go round 2.
I know he's corners. You still need a corner in here. I don't mind taking a corner. And Tyler Eccles, talking about problems. Listen, I know, I get it. I've been there. I've done that. But I worry about the decision making. I hit on this a little bit yesterday. Just the one time where you should be keeping your nose clean and you can't could be a bigger indicator of more than I just made a mistake. I had one too many when I went out. There could be a little bit more to it than that. And I've got some experience in this. DJ James, Stover.
Yes. DJ James, great player. I think DJ James is
Smith still also. We haven't gone safety.
I think DJ James is my move on that one. I like him a lot. Good player, decent size as well. I mean, he's not young, but I think you got a chance to at least have your first boundary corner off the board. Ran a 4.42, so plenty of speed. Has the enough factor in that area. I think he has some inside-outside ability as well. So yeah, I wish sometimes he's a little thicker, right? Came in 175 at the combine. But I think he can play a variety of coverages and can be a good player.
I'm still going Theo Johnson here. 6'6", 260 pounds. He had like a 40-inch vertical leap. I mean, he's a height, weight, speed freak. Mm-hmm. I'm going Theo Johnson here. I can't believe he hasn't been moved up.
Just not super productive at Penn State. Now, granted, their offense.
You don't need him to be just yet. He's got some time to develop, and I'm taking him in the 5th.
Yep.
Safety, Jalen Simpson, not a bad player. Jordan Jefferson, some decent depth there. Cody Schrader, big running back. I'm not sure I want to go that direction, though. Marcus Harris, he's like a Michael Hall light. I like him there. Again, that's a decent spot. Steel Chambers.
Have we taken a center yet?
We have not.
Scroll up. Okay, well, you went too far, but the Penn State guy.
I was going to go and hit.
You're going to go.
Is it just there? It is.
There it is. Hunter. I like Tanner Bonalini, but haven't gone Hunter yet. Okay. Hunter is honestly somebody who is I haven't watched too much of, but had somebody say you got to check him out if you're talking about the centers. I know that Brandon Thorne has talked him up as well, who's one of the better draft folks out there for offensive line and just offensive line in general. He is a really good player. I think Tanner Bonalini will probably go higher if you just want to go pure value there. But we
just took a center. But guys, again, this is someone I want you to keep an eye on. No matter where he ends up, keep an eye on Tanner Bortolini and see where he's drafted and see how he pans out. I think he's got a chance to significantly outplay his draft ranking. So let's just, from my own point of view, this is kind of what I do, y'all. That's a guy I'm watching. Smitty says, I like Braylon, and good to see you, Smitty. I like Braylon Allen as a 4th-round pick, size, power, and speed. He could be a nice piece when you line Bijan Robinson in the slot. Pamela, good to see you. She says, what do y'all think about Bo Limmer, offensive tackle, Arkansas? He was playing interior at the Senior Bowl, and after a day, I think he had his hands full against Tavondre Sweat on day 1. And then when they started going 11v11 and combination blocking and all that type of stuff, Bo Limmer was really good. So I do like him as well. And Bortolini's drill was outstanding at the combine. He had an historically good combine, and then he was good at the Senior Bowl too. So he wasn't just, it's like, okay, I'm watching him play football. I'm watching the measurements. I like both. What am I missing? What am I missing here? Why is he in the 200s? So I think he will outplay that one. We're gonna get your linebacker here though.
I like Ford. That's a kind of a cheat in this draft. I think I'll probably end up going about round 4 or something. Yeah, it's a fun one without a doubt. Weird. I've never seen that before. You drafted Neyland. They said they should have taken Tampa.
Saying who I should have taken, TJ Tampa. Yeah, I could. We discussed that. As far as they go on here as far as we get our grades here, they weren't going to like it. That's okay.
Top 83%, baby. And I definitely think, I think looking at this board, probably the highest value pick you got was Theo Johnson. I imagine he'll go higher.
Well, if I wanted to just get the best grade, and this is all I learned in 5 years of college, was it doesn't really matter what I think. It cares what the guy doing the grading thinks. I would just focus on needs and take the highest player available. That doesn't take anything. I want the part of the discussion we have here is keep an eye on some of the guys we're talking about. Watch and see how they do around the league and see if we know what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. Been doing this a long time. So, I retroactively grade myself? Abso-freaking-lutely. Chris says, I'm still a little leery about Wisconsin offensive linemen after the Peter Coons experiment and the disaster it was. How long ago was he? Was he 2 years ago?
Oh, longer than that.
Was he? There was I'm getting somebody confused then. That was last year. That Skronsky was who I was thinking. Somewhere up that direction. Big Ten guy. Skronsky was okay. That the Falcons were considering possibly taking. Wasn't that Peter Skronsky also?
Skronsky went to Northwestern.
But but wasn't he also a Peter?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that's who I was confusing. Chris was Skronsky.
So yeah, I think if you walked out with this, you added trenches, but you still got a alpha player. One of the blue chippers in this class who's built the same as Jamar Chase. He's a pretty dynamic player, man. I think this would be a heck of a class if you could walk away with this, despite what some of the grades say on there.
Yeah, I'd be pretty happy with it. And again, what I would try to do is take this round 2 and one of these round 3s and maybe, a 5 down here and get back up into the back end of the first round and see if I could get one of the, nothing against Neyland, but I would try and go a different edge or one of the corners and see where they fell. So I still think the Falcons getting into the back end of the first round makes a lot of sense. I still think the Falcons trading back from 8 to 10 to 15 makes a lot of sense. So we will see. Jim says, whoever is still shook on the Wisconsin line, let it go. That was a decade ago. Yeah, well, The Julio trade was a long time before that, and the Brett Favre trade, and I think I still I think I took a shot at Dan Reeves, may he rest in peace, and the Reggie Kelly trade on yesterday. So this Irishman doesn't let things go very well, but we're gonna let you go. We appreciate you being here. Want to say thank you to our super chat superstars. We had Keith and Ellen Johnson come in. We had the coach. We had Edward Brown, Mark Schrader, and then John Harrell with the big orange one. Also want to say thank you to our sponsor, Lion Coffee. Check them out. We're not just schlepping. We're drinking it. We if you're gonna walk the walk, you got to talk the talk, right? Drink the coffee. So on that note, Nick and I will be back tomorrow morning on Mile High Huddle. If you want to come talk quarterbacks, that seems to still be the topic of the spring. And then I will be back on Friday. We'll go through all this stuff again and see if there's any more news. And I won't let Nick take as many picks. So appreciate y'all being here. Nick, any last words?
A lot of fun to be back. We're right around the corner here, and a happy Beast release day too. To those at home, if you don't have a membership to The Athletic, I don't work for them. They're not giving me anything, but paying for the subscription to The Athletic is worth it just for the Beast itself. It's Dane Brugler compiled 400 scouting reports, which is, it's 324 pages long. There's unbelievable amount of information in this thing. So definitely worth checking out.
It's a lot of work. Makes you wish books were still a thing.
Yeah.
Love to have a printed version of that. We're going to get out of here. Again, certainly appreciate you being here. Thanks to all of our super chat superstars. You'll have a great rest of the week. We'll see you on Friday.